What is up, darlings, and welcome back to my podcast. This is actually the first episode of my podcast. It is called Breakdowns with Bodhi, and it's all about my life and life advice and things of that nature, so on and so forth. Now, I was going to put this video on my second channel that I've just started, which is at BodhiTube, but I guess we're doing it on this channel. And I'm just going to get right into it because it's not the ideal first episode, but hey ho, there's a topic that's come up, some things that have been happening, some people that want some dire attention from me. So hey, let's give them what they want. And I'm really not bothered by this. I'm just keeping it a buck. You know what I mean? I'm super chill. I'm not even bothered. Um, yeah, I think it speaks for itself. So we'll start off by addressing this person as Becky. And me and Becky we've been almost lifelong friends. When we were best friends, we were always in trouble. We were very like mischievous kids. Yeah, I know, like getting in trouble and the police, for example, bringing us home, or we'd run away. We were just young rebels, you know what I mean? We were from similar backgrounds and we had very similar experiences in our short young lives. Like I said, we was rebels. We was always getting into trouble. We was kind of outcast. She did join my primary school at like a later time. And this is just contextual, by the way. This is just all contextual. She was in the year above me. And funnily enough, like as a kid, she'd actually attacked me one time, but she attacked me from the back. And I mean, oh my God, hey, y'all bitches love to attack me from the back or when I'm off guard. But yeah, we had a little situation happen when we were kids. And she did apologize for it later on in life, like as we reconnected. But back to the context, I don't know what happened after primary school. She like left, and then we lost contact for a while. And I tried to get in contact with her throughout the years, but like people I'd reached out to weren't passing on my messages and stuff like that. Which obviously, when we reconnected, we discussed all of this and so on and so forth. And we'd always had like a good rapport throughout the years. We'd always been cool. There was never any beef. There was never any issues. No, not nothing like that. We were like distant friends, friends like young adults just living life. So one night I'm at home and I get a message and she's telling me, "Oh my God, I'm homeless and I don't have anywhere to go. I've been kicked out with all of my stuff. I've had to go with my dog. Um, can I please come and stay with you? No one's helping me out. No one's getting back to me." And obviously I felt bad, which I'm that kind of person. I would feel bad. I'm not heartless. I try and use my heart less, if anything. But I thought I'd known her a long time. Why not? And I know, well, I thought I knew at that time if the roles were reversed, she would maybe help me out, which obviously is not true now. But you know, that was me in my own dumb mind being a dumbass and thinking, oh, everybody's got the same heart as me and the same intentions of me. But no, you live and you learn. Not only that, it was a chance. I was looking at it as like a chance to reconnect with my childhood best friend. So why wouldn't I? Even though I wasn't supposed to. And I'm going to stress this point from here on out. The only thing I'm guilty of in this situation is I allowed her to live with me when she wasn't supposed to, and I allowed her and her three dogs. It started off as one dog, ended up being three dogs to live with me also. So they were all living with me, but I didn't take responsibility for the dogs, and all of them, including her, weren't supposed to be living with me. Is what I'm trying to say. That's the only thing I'm guilty of. And obviously, I've owned up to that from the start because to me, there's nothing to add on my end. That's why I can sit here as cool as a cucumber and just talk. Prior to that, I'd heard so many like wild things about her, like stories about her sleeping around. How she was a party girl. She even called herself the cocaine queen at one point, and just a bad all-around rep. And everyone was like, "Nah, please don't, please don't. She's just nothing but trouble. She's nothing but trouble. Like, I know this about her. I know that about her. It was never anything good." And I've always been that kind of person where I will make my mind up for myself whether I like a person or I don't like a person, or I want to help a person out or I don't want to help them out, which is a blessing and a curse. But sometimes, you know, you should really listen to people because if majority of people are telling you that that person's trash, most likely that person is trash. And those people are just trying to look out for you based off of their own experiences, which I've come to realize. And obviously us being from the same kind of background and being childhood best friends, I've seen her as like an older sister. And I always genuinely looked out for her and I tried to reconnect, to have a genuine connection with her in the past, and she never got back to me, or she'd palm me off for some reason. Like, that was a red flag right there. But if ever she messaged me, I would always get back to her. The only times that I didn't message back to her were the times where she was asking me for money. She would text me and she would be like, "Oh, can I borrow like £5? Can I borrow like £10?" And I would always ignore her because it's not my job to. And I did trust her and consider her a good friend, but I always had a gut feeling, so I never lent money to her or anything like that, just purely based off what I'd heard about her and people's experiences. And I just had a feeling like I couldn't 100% trust her. Although I did trust her, I couldn't 100% trust her. There was just something off. Can't quite put my hand on it, but just something off. And I tend to listen to my gut, listen to my intuition. So, of course, I let her come and live with me. I felt bad for her. I bought into a sob story. She was even saying stuff like, "Oh, I've had to throw like items of my clothing and bags of clothing in the canal because I can't carry it," and putting on the tears. And the whole reason why I know now she was putting on them tears was because she was showing me later on as our friendship developed how she put on the fake tears for people and stuff like that. So I know for a fact now, looking back, that that was 100% bullshit. Those tears weren't fake. Like, why the fuck you lying? Oh, and that's just reminded me, even as well in the past, I've even done a stuff like made a food parcels out of my own money. That's something I used to do. In case you didn't know, I used to make food parcels for people, which is something I would love to get back to. I would give them away completely free of charge. It was just something I did to give back to the community. Nobody asked me to do it. It was just something I wanted to do. And I think it was once or twice I helped her out, and every time I want to say 2 times that I helped her out, and each time she got a massive bag of like canned food, pasta, tuna, boxes of cereal, all out of my own pocket, completely free of charge, which I don't mind doing. It's just I'm giving you an example again of how I've helped her out and I've got nothing in return or not even anything from her back. And I actually felt, as weird as this sounds, I actually felt like it was a safe zone having her with me because I wasn't anything like any other kind of person that she'd been around. She told me that herself. I wasn't a bad influence. I was somebody that was very headstrong. I was somebody that I wasn't into the bullshit. I wasn't into the pettiness. I wasn't into the party and all of that. Don't get me wrong, we did do alcohol and we did do Coca-Cola together and we did do other substances together. And I'm just open about that. I'm not gonna sit there and say it was just no, we all did it. And obviously we started to become really, really close as friends. We was more like brother and sister. And then obviously as the weeks went by, she made me a promise that on her deceased dad's ashes, she'd actually help me pay the bills. And I'm somebody that takes that very seriously when you swear down on your deceased family's lives. And obviously I was on a budget at that time of £600. For one person, that's just about enough. But for another person, plus an XL bully that is absolutely huge, and everything's coming out of my pocket. She never contributed, not a penny in the end. So that was the first thing that pissed me off was she swore down on a deceased father's ashes that she would help me out with these bills because my bills were starting to go like my money, sorry, was starting to go super fast. £600 for 2 people and a pit bull that's bigger than us both is not a lot of money, you know what I mean? Not when it's cost of living, you're running a household, you're paying gas, you're paying food, you're paying electricity, you need to buy cleaning supplies, you need to buy shower stuff, you need to buy new clothes, you need to buy this, you need to buy that, you need to put some aside. And I would always say, like, I'm not trying to pressure you guys into paying rent, but this isn't enough for me to run this household on and everybody else in it. I'm running everybody on my money. And there was times where my money was lasting me at minimum a day, probably less than 24 hours sometimes, and then maximum it would last me 24 hours. Not even kidding. And she wasn't digging into her pockets the entire time. The most she did was put £20 on the electric. Bear in mind, she lived with me for nearly 6 months, and I had to force her to buy a pouch of tobacco one time because I had to force her though. So I was taking care of her, the dogs, her friends as well, the household, bills, daily necessities, fucking hell. Washing, you name it, I covered it. Never once did she actually fulfill that promise. So that right there shows how much respect you have for your father. Evidently none. Despite one time, I think it was the first month she stayed with me, she showed me her bank account and she had it was 2,500 in a bank account. So I'm struggling on £600 to try and make it stretch for me, you, your dog, your friends, and all these weirdos that you keep introducing me to, as well as daily costs and living and stuff like that, and bills and etc. And you've got 2,500 in your account, and I'm getting nothing. Oh my god, I know you're fucking lying. When she actually moved in, I even gave her my entire bedroom. I gave her my wardrobe. I told her every single day what's mine, yours, help yourself. Trying to be a good friend because I was raised properly. You know what I mean? I was raised properly. And even one time, I overheard a conversation. She was saying to the guy that later that a guy later came to stay with us. His name was Woody. And I overheard her saying to him in the bedroom one day. She was like, "I don't want to wear any of these clothes. They're not designer." And her friend Woody later turned out to be a predator, which we'll address later on. And I'm not saying allegedly because of the source, and because I can also prove it. And that same friend Woody, I also allowed, it was like a month after she came, I also allowed him to come and stay with me. Bear in mind, under the pretense that it was supposed to be a short term stay. Yeah, motherfucking right. Sure, buddy, whatever you say. I mean, who the fuck even gives a shit if the clothes are designer or they're not? Like, bitch, don't act like you wasn't homeless before you didn't come to me. Do you know what I mean? And your friend Woody's no place to pull his face because the state of his house when we went to clean it, it was absolutely disgusting. If you've ever watched the show Hoarders, they have cleaner homes than his home. Like, we actually found, I'm not even joking, a dead mouse in his bedroom. Like, all the doors hanging off, the house absolutely stunk. I got ill the next day through cleaning that house. And then one of them left £80 worth of cleaning stuff on the bus that I'd paid for. Whilst I think it might have been Becky that left the cleaning stuff on the bus, whilst Woody, the day we went to clean his house, was in bed the whole day. We set off early in the morning to go and clean his house up in St Helens. We came back to Wigan, got about 7, 8 at night, and he just got out of bed as we were opening the door. So we can go clean in your house for free, by the way. We even went and picked up a fireplace for him, a heavy ass fireplace that me and Becky carried in the pissing down rain. And you can't even be asked coming along to help clean. But I'm cleaning your shit for free. Whilst I'm also finding my underwear in your house, Woody, with shit stains in. I don't want them underwears back. You can motherfucking keep them. But don't have the nerve to pull your stuff at my clothes and shit when you're literally stealing my underwear. I'm finding my underwear in your house. Dirty ass, disgusting ass house. And then his sister came in and she was like, "Oh, do you want me to pick it up?" And she picked it up with her bare hands. And I was like, "You're picking up a dead mouse with your bare hands. I can't." But yeah, I just feel like any homeless bitch should be grateful that I'm even considering giving you anything like the fuck. I don't have to help a soul in this world. Not a soul. I chose to help because I believe that at heart, despite my pros and my cons, I have many more cons. Sorry, I have many more pros than cons. I'm a good person overall when you strip it all back. And my good outweighs my bad. So Becky and Woody, I just want to say, fuck you, because who the fuck are you really? I'm your motherfucking mother and you is my children because I was raising children, you understand? Motherfuckers wasn't paying for nothing in that house. Motherfuckers had their own money and was sitting on their own money, but it was all right for me to blow my money within 2 days and have no help for the rest of the month, having to scrap change, go and beg other people to help me. And these motherfuckers are sat on their own money, spending it on Coca-Cola and magic pills and ketamine, alcohol. And yeah, my home at the time wasn't perfect, nor was it ideal. But at the end of the day, you still had a roof over your head. You still had clean clothes. Both of you and your crusty skid mark friend. Just, I can't get over the fact I found my underwear in his house with the shit stains in there. Ugh. There was always fucking food available. There was always a place to lay your head. There was always a place to wipe your ass, eat your food. There was always a warm shower to go and use. There was always somebody washing your clothes. You always had a friend in me, someone that actually tried to really the hardest to be there and be a good friend and not give up on yous or abandon yous like I felt in my mind at the time that everybody else had done. That was part of why I chose to help yous in the first place because I didn't want to give up on yous. Dumbass me considered them as friends at the time. Like, nah. I have no problem holding accountability. I was way too nice. I kept my mouth shut for way too long. Honestly, I went into like autopilot mode and I just zoned out. You know, being diagnosed with disassociation and being under extreme stress, which we'll obviously get into as this video progresses. Yeah, it was a lot. So the overly bleached peroxide Becky with the shit hair and Predator Woody with the shit stains, they're just squatters and tramps essentially. So about a month after Becky comes, she gives me some sob story about how Woody needs a place to stay, not because he doesn't have his own house, but it's just because she wants to keep an eye on him and da 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 da. And can he stay with me? And I said, yeah, it'll be fine. And then a couple of days into it, Woody was like, "Oh, I promise I'm in mum and dad's ashes, our grave, whatever it is. I don't really give a shit at this point." But again, another lying ass motherfucker that swore down on his deceased family's, graves or ashes, whatever it is, that he would help out with the bills, never came to fruition. Was just all a bunch of bullshit. And that's my thing. Y'all bitches can't be mad at me for calling that out when y'all did that. You would never catch me a day in my life swearing down on any deceased member's family life and not following through. That's just not something you do in my eyes. But clearly, for you two, that's something you don't mind doing and can do with ease. Just leeches and tramps. Beggars, essentially, without the begging, but with a lot more fucking entitlement, let me tell you. So, about 2 months into this, I actually started to become very unwell. I was stressed constantly. I wasn't eating regularly. I was losing weight really fast. I was over exercising. I have a condition called trigeminal neuralgia, which is swelling of the nerve endings in the face, which is often caused by stress. And I ended up having a TN episode or a flare up, in other words, that lasted a month and a half. And if you've ever dealt with TN, you know that it is absolute agony to deal with. And I was still doing a whole laundry list of things from the second I got up to the second I went to sleep. That's if I got chance to sleep. I was doing something. It was either cleaning, polishing, hoovering, washing, drying, um, trying to make food for people, ironing, you name it. I was doing mopping, you name it. I was doing the whole 9 yards with no help. Like the dog shitting all over my front yard, my backyard, my neighbours complaining because Becky won't go and clean up the dog shit. One time we'd left Chunk in the house, which is the name of our ex-al bully. We left him in the house. Came back, there was mountains and mountains of dog shit all over my flat. He'd ripped my letterbox off. He'd scraped my walls with his claws. She was like, "Oh, I'll replace it. I'll clean up the damages and all of that." She cleaned up the dog shit. A very shittily job at that as well. It was terrible how her quote unquote cleaning temp was. She never replaced any of the damages. Again, a whole crock of shit. And nobody was helping me. Nobody was helping me financially. Nobody was helping with the housework. Yeah, Becky would cook tea, but that's the fucking least you could do when you're living with me rent free. And I'm paying for everything else. I'm providing absolutely everything else. I'm losing my money within maximum 2 days, and you're sat on 2,500 a month. Your friend sat on at least over a grand, and everything's coming out of my motherfucking pocket. And I also didn't want to lose my cool with them because, as I said before, I truly, truly didn't want to give up on them or feel like I was abandoning them in them or feeling like I was giving up on my friend. And then obviously he'd become a friend by means of her. And anybody that ever got through my door was because of the fact that I knew her. And that was it. Had I have not known her, they would have never gotten through my door. And today I wouldn't piss on any of y'all bitches if y'all was on fire and begging. Also, at the time, I had an internal bleed. I'm diagnosed with this as well. I'm still currently going through it. So that was strenuous. That was incredibly, incredibly painful. If you've ever had an internal bleed or you're recovering from one, you know how painful it is. And I had no medication at the time. So imagine that you're TN, being depressed, being constantly stressed, you're not eating, you're over exercising, you've constantly got something to do, you're extremely disassociated, and you feel like you're trapped in this life that is just never ending. Every single day is the same. Nobody's thinking about my feelings, considering my feelings, helping me out. But here they are in my own home, disrespecting me, being so entitled, not giving a fuck about me. But they're sleeping in my bed. They're literally eating my food. They're literally using my house as their own. They literally, Sammy and Muddy, I don't even give a fuck, I'll say a name at this point. Sammy and Muddy had sex in my bed one night, and I caught them. I didn't go in and disturb them, but I caught them. And then I found out later twice they'd had sex in my bed, and I told them I don't want to go in that bed. I will not get in that bed. I don't. You two are some trash bags. Like I don't want to get in that bed. I don't know where you've been, and I never got in that bed. This from the second she arrived in my house, I never slept in my bed afterwards or again, ever. I always slept on the couch, and she had more than one guy in my bed, just at different times. Which again, how disrespectful is that? Your friend coming into your home, a homeless ass bitch at that, and she's bringing these sleaze bags home and these rejects home and just these people that don't give you a good vibe at all, and she's fucking them like 3 meets in because they've got ketamine or because um, they've got weed or because they've got something she wants at the time. She'll give herself up and then she wonders why her vagina's mutilated. Your vagina is not mutilated because your ex-boyfriend bit it. Your vagina is mutilated because you are a hooer who cannot stop using a vagina. Being a hooer is not good for your vagina. Of course, it's going to start, you know what I mean, looking a bit rank down there, the way you're hopping around. Stop it. Get some help. She'd also do shit like introduce me to really unfavorable people, like a woman who was a court dealer at the time. She lived across from me. She was awaiting sentencing because she crashed a car. Emmanuel literally got in my home all the 3 times and then got banned because, firstly, he said one night him and his friends were going to go to the park where the children play, like a children's park, and they were going to go and quote pick up girls. And I shit you not, they were like 19, 21, these guys. And I just thought that was really weird. Like, why are 19 to 21-year-olds going to a children's park to quote unquote pick up girls? That sounds a little bit weird. And the piss on the chips for this one lad was he was walking around my house one day and he was on about how much he loves stealing. He can't stop himself from stealing. And him walking around my house was agitating me because I'm one of them people. If you're coming into my home, you're going to sit down. You're not going to be walking around all around my house. Like, nah, have some respect. Stay in one room. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to be walking all around my house and then making it known that you're a thief. I definitely don't want. I don't want you up in this motherfucker. Like you gotta go. No, you gotta get the fuck on up out of here. And that lad never got in my flat again. He did try though, knocking on the door and shit. Like one time late at night, with his hood up, just stood there, like in the dark, and it was cold. It was raining. It was like a whip wind, like a that kind of wind. And he's knocking on my door. And I'm like, yeah, you with the crusty zigzag teeth, you're not getting in my house anymore. And he pretty much didn't. And then one time she introduced me to a guy that she'd met in a homeless shelter who to Big Daddy. He'll know who he is when I said that. I'm on about you. Yeah, because you're probably sat there listening to this thinking, oh, that's not that bad. Sammy's still my friend. She's not your friend. She was on about, oh, you're so obsessed with her and you won't leave her alone and she just uses you for money because you give her money here and there, like a 10 or 15 quid there, but she's got to pay it you back. And just talking a whole bunch of shit about, oh, you're sex obsessed, you won't leave her alone. That night you stayed at mine, you was trying it on with her in the bedroom, and she had to pretend like she was asleep. And you are a bit of a weirdo, let's just be honest. Like one night she came in absolutely off her face in my house. She was clearly off her face, and he was on something too. I was the only sober one in the building. Um, and he got on the couch and he kept whipping her breasts out, like pulling her dress down to whip her breasts out, and I kept pulling her dress back up. And I asked him twice to stop, and two times he'd gone and pulled her dress down again to expose her breasts. And I slapped his hand the third time and I said, "Can you please stop doing that? Like, you're making me feel uncomfortable." Because you literally, my friend's clearly inebriated. She's on something. She couldn't even sit up straight. She was really like, like all over the place. And he is this grown ass man whipping her breasts out. It made me feel really uncomfortable. And then she told me how he was delivering her a fridge and they'd had sex one time in the hotel, and ever since then he'd never been able to leave her alone and she just uses him for money. But literally, as soon as he left, she did nothing but talk shit about him the whole time, and she did that with everybody that she introduced me to. So imagine what she was saying about me behind my back. Oh, I dread to think, honey, I'm a real bitch. I say it to your face. But yeah, can you imagine the kind of shit that bitch was talking? And so yeah, I don't know if I addressed this prior in the podcast, but Woody actually got the boot the fuck up out my house because he just became a dead weight. He became lazy. He was doing one time he did £300 worth of ketamine. One night he just left my kitchen in an absolute state. He drank a full bottle of Gordon's vodka. It was like 39.9%, and then a full bottle of Glen's vodka. Um, 37.9%, if I remember correctly. I caught him one night trying to steal from me, and then he was acting like he didn't. And I'm not stupid. I leave stuff in a very specific place. Like if I leave something, I put something down, I know where it is. And obviously, him not knowing me that well, Woody is clearly took me for a fool there. But the joke was on him because I knew that my shit was moved because it wasn't in the place where I left it. That's how I caught you out. You was a dumbass bitch. So yeah, me and Becky was getting sick of him too. We literally forced him out. He was meant to go and get a mental health check, quote unquote, but never did. And then he was meant to go and hand himself in, but never did. And I was like, as long as you just get the fuck up out my house and don't ever come back in this motherfucking doorway and ever darken in my life again, I'm so happy for that. But yeah, me and Woody aren't cool either. He can go and fuck himself. And in pertaining to man and his beef, I said what I said and stand on it. You bitch. You can gladly sit on it and swerve. And it was around this point I was actually starting to realise a lot like I wanted all of them out. It was becoming a bit much. Like I said before, I felt like I was in autopilot mode and I felt trapped in this life. I couldn't get out of it. It was never ending. It was like an everyday cycle of just complete disassociation, autopilot, just repetition, bullshit, laziness from them, born idleness from them, no help, no support. Just me, myself, and my disassociation. If it wasn't for my disassociation, I probably would have cracked up a lot sooner. And I started to feel really, really helpless, trapped, depressed, hopeless. I was becoming more and more physically unwell as well. I was becoming thinner. The pain was increasing with my internal bleed. The pain in my face was increasing. The swelling was increasing in my face. Also, the swelling from the internal bleed. The constant stress, the migraines from the stress, the sleep deprivation, the over exercising was affecting me. I had me, myself, I had me, Woody, Sammy, two dogs that were destroying and causing absolute fucking chaos in my beautiful home. Like, I'd put 3 years of love into that home, into that flat. And I just got it to a point where it was looking homely, it was feeling homely, it was perfect. Until they came along. And then there was dogs shitting all over my house, destroying my house, just wrecking everything, just things going missing. Oh my god, just bone idle laziness from these squatter, trampy, just delinquents, law lives. And these leeches that were actually painting themselves as my friends. They were smiling in my face, and actually, they really wanted to drain me of everything. I have all of my resources, and then it's on to the next fucking person when they've got all they can from me, and then they'll leave me in the dust. I just find that incredibly ironic because they were the ones that started with nothing, and then towards the end of that situation ending, I ended up with nothing, but now I'm in a completely different place. That's why it doesn't bother me as much. I'm in a much, much, much better place, and I'm actually doing really, really well in life, and I'm really, really proud of myself. I'm really happy. So that's why I'm not on here screaming and shouting like I have been in the past because it doesn't affect me like that. It doesn't get me angry. I just feel more disgusted in myself and more like, Michael, you should have. Michael's my real name anyway, but I was like, Michael, you should have just wars up and just put your foot down a lot sooner, and this could have been avoided. And it was a great lesson in finding your voice, putting your foot down and saying, I'm not dealing with this shit. Oh no, this isn't my responsibility. It was a great lesson for that, and also a lesson in who to trust and who not to trust. I guess no good deed goes unpunished, eh? During the time that Woody was there, so it was me, Becky, Woody. We got another dog, Kaya, at some point. It was Sammy's dog, but she'd asked me for permission for Kaya to live there. I said, yeah, that was fine, but Sammy took responsibility for the dogs. That's important for later. So take a note of that. We were all doing mounds of drugs. We was doing, like I said, we was doing Coca-Cola. We was doing, they were called magic pills. We were doing ketamine. We were doing anything we could get our hands on, balloons, uh, anything that we could get our hands on, really. Me and Muddy would do pregabalin together. If you don't know, I'm a recovering addict from pregabalin, as well as other substances. And I'm completely clean now. I can take a drug test for anybody, a piss test, a blood test, you name it. Let's go, honey. But at that time, I wasn't innocent. I did participate. If not, because there was times I was the only one standing in the room. I was the only one that was awake. You know what I mean? So for somebody that had never done them kinds of drugs to be like the only person standing more than once says a lot. And obviously, as I mentioned before, there was one time Woody blew through £300 worth of ketamine in like one night. It wasn't even one night. It was like maybe 2, 3 hours because we'd gone to meet him one night after he'd gone somewhere and come back. And by the time that we'd walked from, we used to meet him in Ashton and we would walk back to Bamfalong. And during that time, the entire £300 would damn near be gone. Bag of ketamine, and we'd finish the rest off at mine. Looking back, my home was definitely what you would call like a crack den, but like not a crack den. Like it was where people would come to do the drugs, smoke the drugs, but it just looked like a normal house. Despite I had a broken window at the time that I was waiting to get fixed. My bathroom ceiling did collapse, but it got fixed towards the end. Yeah, it wasn't the best flat, but it looked like a nice home. And like I said, and I do want to keep stressing, I take accountability for myself and my actions. I should have spoke up a lot sooner, and I do play a part in how I ended up in that situation because I should have spoke up a lot sooner because I felt uncomfortable, stressed out over it, and so many other words I could use. Um, Almost, I want to say a week into it when she first come, and I didn't say a word for like 6 months until a particular event happened that we'll get into later. She'd also introduced me to another friend of hers. We're going to call him the raccoon, and he was another leech. She introduced me to, and he wouldn't stop coming to my home, relentlessly knocking on my home every day, just inviting himself around. And I'm a very private person and I'm very antisocial. I'm learning that about myself. I want to be social, but I'm very antisocial. And I'm also introverted. I'm like, leave me the fuck alone. I'll talk to you when I want to talk to you. I don't want you coming to my house every day. I don't want you messaging me every day. Back off. I'll communicate when I want to communicate. And again, he just turned into another person that I was constantly supplying. And, if it wasn't fucking hell, cigarettes, or if it wasn't weed, if it wasn't fucking a place to come and chill, if it wasn't, using my electricity for whatever. Even one night I allowed him to stay because he got locked out of his baby's mama's house, and I didn't even get a thank you. Yeah, and he didn't even ask. He pretty much prompted himself to stay. He was like, "Oh, I've got nowhere to go, so I'll have to stay here. Am I all right getting up bedroom floor?" So you know what I mean. Again, that's a red flag when you just invite yourself in to stay at someone's home. You don't even ask them. The entitlement of these tramps and these squatters. And funny story, me and the raccoon actually nearly got into a fight the first time we ever met because his baby mama said she was going to slap me one time. And then when I found out who he was the day he come round to my flat. Um, and I found out who he was. I stood up and I said, "Oh, she sent you here for me." And he went, "What? What do you mean?" I went, "Because I can understand that. If she's sending a man to come and handle him, I can understand that." And he was like, "No, no, no, I'm just a baby daddy. I'm just a baby daddy. I don't go with her." And I was like, "Oh," but yeah, we nearly ended up fighting that time. But he's just another leech, another slob. Couldn't keep a job for more than 2 seconds. Always quitting, always in debt with somebody. Nothing going for himself. Just another slob. Like whenever I had stuff to share, I'd always share it with him. I'd always share it with her. I'd always share it with Woody. Don't forget, that's now 4 people in my house and 2 dogs. And then we ended up later getting, after Woody left, we got a third dog that Sammy took. Because all them dogs were her dogs. I'm going to keep stressing that point because that's the truth. They were her dogs. Y'all know from the Facebook groups that she was on when she was quote unquote famous, as she loves to say, that y'all know she was rehoming them dogs herself, taking them in herself. She wanted them for herself. I purely just let her and her dogs live with me. That was it. They were not my dogs. So I'm supplying 4 people, 2, 3 dogs on £600. No wonder my money was going, and nobody helped me out. Nobody chucked me any money and said, "Here, you know what? Here's a little bit of rent. Here's a little bit just towards the bills." Or, "Oh, I'll buy the food shop this week." Or, "Oh, I'll put the lecky on this week." Or, "Oh, I'll put the gas on this week." None of that. Absolutely none of that. But they always made sure they had the Coca-Cola and the ketamine. Oh, when times were tough, there was always a bottle of wine or a bottle of vodka lying around for them. The fuck was there for me? Absolutely nothing. And just an example of how much Sammy took the piss, like, as I've mentioned before, I paid for everything in the household, right? Even the food shop. And when Sammy and Woody were living with me, I used to do like a 250, £200 food shop, because basically that's what you need to feed everybody. Um, And one day she asked me, she was like, "Oh, can I make the neighbour who I mentioned prior, who was waiting a sentencing for getting into a car crash? He was a Coca-Cola dealer." Uh, she was like, "Oh, can I make this girl a plate of food?" And I said no, because obviously it's my food. I'm paying for it all. I don't want some stranger having a free meal out of me. This bitch went and snuck in the kitchen, kept the door closed when I was in the shower, because if y'all know me, I have long showers. When I got out the shower, she was sneaking out the door, like she'd already gone out the front door, and you could smell food. And I'm looking out the kitchen window. I walk into the kitchen and look through the kitchen window, and I see her. She's almost tiptoeing across the road with a dinner tray, and it's a fucking mountain of food for this neighbour. And I'm like, "You cheeky fucking bitch! I told you no." You know what I mean? If you wanted to feed this bitch so damn bad, you get your hand in your pocket and feed her, but I don't want to feed her. And then you go against me saying no anyway. Like, that's just the cheekiness and the entitlement and just the nerve. Like, who does that? If someone's paying for the food and you're not contributing not a penny, but you're gonna go and make the fucking neighbour a meal like that person's fucking food shop, and you're not contributing a penny to it. Now, I've mentioned before that Becky has a pit bull, and I don't give a fuck. This is my platform, and I'll say whatever I want to say on my own platform. I pray that that dog gets put down, passes away, um, or rips her to pieces. I truly do. I say a prayer every day, and I hope that it comes true. I hope the Lord is able to bring that to fruition for me, and I would be most grateful, and I would never ask the Lord for a fucking thing again. I'd already told her prior to her moving in, I'm not sure about this XL bully. I have a fear of XL bullies. I don't want an XL bully in my home. I don't want any pets. And let me tell you all another thing. One time she went out, she just got one of her many jobs because this bitch couldn't keep a job to save her life. A day at the most, she'd be in a job. She went to work and she left the dog at home, and the dog Chunk, the XL bully, was trying to mate with the female dog. And obviously, I tried to separate them, and she didn't tell me that pit bulls become aggressive if you try and interrupt their mating when they're trying to penetrate. Um, and she didn't tell me this till later on. She said, "Oh, you being a male is what set the dog off." And the point being is, she didn't give me no warning. So if I hadn't have run and shut my bathroom, like open my bathroom door to block off the corridor, and then because literally what happened was, as soon as I pulled him off the dog, he come running at me. So I've opened the bathroom door, and he's pushed straight past the bathroom door, and I've had to literally fight a fucking pit bull, a massive. I don't know how he was fucking huge. His head is humongous. His head is like six a man. His body is huge. I had to literally box a fucking pit bull. I'm not even joking. On everything I love, I had to box a pit bull. And I ran to the door, and this pit bull is trying to grab my ankles. It's trying to go for my neck. I'm punching it. I'm side to side punching it. I'm trying to push it away from me. It's still trying to bite me. It's clawing the shit out of my walls. I had claw marks all down my arms. I had a big cut down my leg. I would run to the living room door. I open the living room door, so that blocks off the corridor again, and it manages to literally almost rip the door down. The door comes flying open, and I've had no choice but to put my hands between the door frame and kick the pit bull under the chin as he's gone running for me, and that's what stopped him from attacking me. So when I've phoned her up, and I've obviously been panicked, I've been scared, I've been shaken because that shook me the fuck up. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't know that it could get like that. She had never warned me. I phoned her up and she's laughing. She's like, "Oh, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, it's because you're a male, and if you try and interrupt them when they're mating and they can smell another male, they'll go to attack you." I'm like, "Why the fuck didn't you tell me that?" She's like, "Oh, I just don't know. I guess I forgot." So yeah, I don't feel bad about that because I literally, what was I supposed to do? Sit there and die? Let a fucking pit bull rip me up? Absolutely fucking not. I don't give a fuck. I'm gonna put up a fight. I don't give a fuck. And guess what? I won. So I'm not turning into no dog's dinner today, mate. I'ma throw down with that bitch, a dog or not. The fuck? I'ma throw down. And also, Becky had some kind of relationship with, it was kind of a sugar daddy kind of thing, and she was sending nudes and stuff to this pictures, nudes and stuff, pictures to a married man, and at the time, his wife was actually dying of breast cancer in the hospital, and this bitch is sending nudes to this man, and he's bringing us breakfast, and some other creepy shit, like he'd slept with one of her friends, ex-friends, in the same bed as her. And then he tells her stuff like, she needs to lose weight, she's not thin enough for him. I'm like, mate, your wife's dying of cancer in the hospital, and you're entertaining some young girl. And he'd only ever give her peanuts and spare change. She told me she was like, the most he'd ever spent on her was 400. I'm like, girl, if you really want to try and flex, I used to date a multimillionaire. And if you want the receipts, just let me know, darling. Because I wouldn't do nothing for no 400. And that's just the truth. There's just the truth here. There's this at 400. Girl, come on. Do better. Stop it. Get some help. And I just got tired of everyone being so laid back and getting so comfortable all at my expense. I was like, hell no, this shit is not happening no more. And I started to get really annoyed. And like I said, towards the end, she was actually in Facebook groups rehoming dogs. Apparently, according to herself, she was quote unquote famous, and so many people knew her. And that resulted in the night all of the shit happened was the separate crowd that turned up was actually a crowd for her. So a crowd from these Facebook groups had turned up for her because Raccoon Face had abandoned a dog. And she wanted him to take the blame, but everybody blamed her. And that had nothing to do with me. I wasn't in them Facebook groups. I don't know anything about that. I do know she was helping with the dogs, but I don't know what group she was in. I just know that that turned sour quite fast. Yeah, and she was just weird. Like the day after she had sex with Woody, she was like, "Oh my god, I swear to God, I'm pregnant." And she was like doing stuff like buying him love balloons and buying him matching jewelry, and he just wasn't interested. You was easy girl. Why would he be interested? And he's a predator. So yeah, there's that. She even one time introduced me to a vegetable. I'm not apologetic for that because that's just what it is to a vegetable. And he had about 360,000 kids, and it was all a bit much for me. She was just introducing me to some really weird people, strange people, creepy people, people you wouldn't want to be around. Believe me, like rejects and wannabes and like street urchins, I would say. And it was around this time she actually started clicking onto the fact that like I was getting kind of tired of her and everything that was going on. And then she starts talking to this other guy who's also called Mike, and I found this hilarious. So she introduces me to a jailbird boyfriend, and he's such a Tyson Fury wannabe. It's actually hilarious, like a Bronson 2.0, but like a very, very pathetic Bronson, like skinny, lanky, like you not going to do shit to nobody, boy. Sit your ass down, you silly bugger. Even one time he threatened me. He was like in his shed, his mum's house, should I say? It's like if anything happens to Sammy, I'll beat you up. So I literally sat on my hands, and I'm like, if you're so gangster, go for it, because that's what I'm doing. I'm challenging you non-verbally. I'm sitting on my hands. So if you feel like you can beat me, go on, touch me. I'm right here, and you never did. But you so tough, right? You didn't even check me then. Right, stop playing with me. Why the fuck you lying? Dumbass boy, don't ever. Because I'm not scared of anything human in this life. Let me just say that. There's not a soul on the face of this earth. There never will be, and there never was, and then there just never will be that scares me. I'm not scared of anything human, sweetheart, so you bleed the same way I do, bitch. Anyway, so she started sleeping with him. I believe it was the second or first time she met him. Then the situation happened where she attacked one of my neighbours, and then my neighbour, who I've never met, brought a whole crowd of people to my house. They wanted Sammy to come outside. Sammy was too pussy to. So they started to smash my flat up. Another crowd of people from the dog groups on Facebook turned up for Sammy too, so it was getting a bit much. The police come and all that. Before the police come, Sammy was actually bashing herself in the head with a foundation glass bottle to make it look like she had welts. She cut herself with a pair of scissors on the head, and that's how she got away with it. So later on, the police took us away. She stole my money. We went to stay at a hotel, the Premier. She stole my money the next day. Sorry, she stole my card the next day. She stole my flat keys, broke into my flat later on, tried to frame me for quote unquote abandoning her dog, but I was with her the same. Like we both went to the same hotel, so if I was abandoning them dogs, surely you was too. And them dogs are your responsibility. I told you that from the start. They're not my responsibility. I didn't want them here in the first place. They're your responsibility. She was even dumb enough to make a Facebook post trying to play like she'd rescued them, and it's like, girl, you was with me the whole time, so how were they abandoned? How did I abandon them? They were not my responsibility in the first place. They were yours. Hence, a whole group of people turning up from the dog sharing groups on Facebook to come whoop your ass because they thought it was you abandoning the dog and it was your friend. But you was more than happy to let your friend take the blame until the people clicked onto you. See what I mean? That girl ain't nobody friend. So I might have to do a part two to this because this is getting quite long. But I did receive a call from the RSPCA. They did tell me I'm under investigation about the dog situation. I explained to them. I also explained to them that they can look on Sammy's social media, and that's part of how I got cleared. Can I just emphasize that I got cleared in the investigation? Sammy is still under investigation from the last time I phoned them. She'd already been reported by numerous people on my street at that time. I hadn't been reported because the dogs were never mine. She'd just phoned them up herself and tried to put in a report saying it was me, and I blew her out the water because they went and checked her social media and they seen that those dogs were hers and they weren't mine, and I got cleared. And that's why she's still under investigation. So there's also that. Becky had even tried to blame me for the reason that her and my neighbour fought, when really her and my neighbour fought because she thought that my neighbour was in touch with a quote unquote abusive ex boyfriend, which don't nobody believe, but that's why they really fought. It had nothing to do with me. And like I said, you can go and ask that neighbour herself, we don't even know each other. that night was the first time we'd ever seen each other. Like, I don't know that girl. She'd asked to meet me. She'd asked through Sammy, could she meet me a few times? And I'd always said no, because I don't want to meet her. She's not my cup of tea. Nobody on that street was not my kinds of people. No, thank you. Fuck off and goodbye. So, guys, I have decided that there will be a part two to this episode, or I might just call it episode two. But for now, I just want to thank you for watching. This is Breakdown with Body Sheet, episode one, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And I'm hoping that my future content is actually more positive. So, I love y'all so much, and goodbye.